Word up. Today I thought I would like to engage in a little myth busting. The myth I would like to bust is this. There seems to be this belief among people who aren't really familiar with model railways that model railways are synonymous with Hornby. Like, I've often talked to people who aren't really familiar with the hobby, and they'll say, "Oh, I used to have a Hornby," or "Oh, do you have a Hornby train set then?" And it's kind of weird. There seems to be this belief that Hornby is either the only model railway company or the best. Now, the latter is debatable, and it has indeed been debated a great deal. But the former point is the one I find very interesting. Because Hornby is not the only company. Not by a long shot. It's the best known, I would say, certainly in Britain. And they do produce a very high quality product. This here is their Peckett W4, which is one of my favourite locomotives in my collection. But there are dozens of other companies, large and small. There's Backman, there's Hellion, there's Dapol, Oxford. There's lots of small players getting into the game, like Hatton's, Rails, DJM, RIP. So it's it's a bit weird. Sort of assuming that model railways are synonymous with Hornby is a bit like assuming that every reggae song you hear is by Bob Marley. It's not that Bob Marley is bad, it's just that there's a heck of a lot of other stuff and you're kind of doing it a disservice. Let me demonstrate. Hold on a second. So here you go. This is a Backman Fairburn tank. Backman are perhaps the biggest after Hornby. I have no statistics to back that up, but based upon my purely subjective judgment, they are probably the best known after Hornby. And as you can see, the detail on this tank engine is absolutely superb. It's very much a match for the Hornby engine you just saw. So, Hornby is not the only manufacturer producing really high quality models. I could do a similar demonstration with Hellion, Oxford, or Hatton's. And here's an engine you've all seen before, one of Hornby's less detailed offerings. So, I guess the question is, why is it that Hornby is seen as the best to a layman? Why is it that that's the name everyone recognises? Why is it when I go to a jumble sale, people attempt to charge you through the nose for some cheapo Hornby wagon from the 70s just because it's Hornby? I think you really have to go quite a long way back, like a long way back. All the way to 1901, in fact, which was when Frank Hornby first founded the company that makes Meccano, which in the days before Lego was the construction toy. People were robust then. You could have kids messing around with like spanners and files and bits of jagged metal. It was all cool. It was character building. Yeah, I mean, they were 14 years off the First World War. You know what I'm saying? Then in 1920, Frank Hornby produced the first Hornby train. Now, this was very primitive by modern standards. It was a clockwork four-wheeled engine. I don't have one because those things go for like thousands, and I love you guys, but I don't love you thousands of pounds worth. Sorry. The company was very successful. Again, one of a number of companies making toy trains at the time. They improved the quality of their models. Eventually, they came to produce something called Hornby 00, which was the modern 00 scale. In fact, let me see if I can insert a shot of a Hornby 00 engine just to illustrate what I mean. This right here is a Hornby 00 engine. This is the West Country Pacific Barnstaple, and I don't know if you can tell, but this thing is, it's heavy. It's made of metal. I mean, you drop that thing off the table, then you'd better hope you have a strong floor. This is a quality locomotive. So that gives you some idea of the quality that Hornby was producing in the post-war era. The thing is, the modern Hornby trains are not produced by the same company that produced that engine. And to understand why, you need to go to 1964. And I need to introduce you to a company called Tryon. And let me just get one of their engines. Tryon were Hornby's main competitor in the 50s and 60s. And this is a somewhat battered example of one of their most popular locomotives, Nellie. Now this is an unfair representation in that Tryon did produce some very high quality models, some of which are still in production today, in fact. But they were much more geared up towards the kids market. They produced engines like this that were cheap, they were mass-produced, and that was the advantage they had over Hornby. Hornby was producing stuff that for the most part was very high quality, but Tryon could undercut them by marketing to kids. You could give your 5-year-old an engine like this, and they could scoot it around, and they'd have a grand old time. Hornby did try to get into this market, but too late. Tryon had it sewn up, and so in 1964, Tryon bought Hornby out. They traded for a while under the name Tryon Hornby before they themselves went bust, and the new owners renamed the whole range Hornby. Now, Tryon did not produce any of the Hornby locomotives or stock. Well, actually, I believe they did produce one of the old Hornby models, but you'll have to check with a historian for that. But for the most part, what happened to the old Hornby 00 tooling was they went to a company called Wren. Wren were later had their stuff bought up by Dapol, and again, some of their stuff is still manufactured to this day. So what that means is that the modern Hornby is the descendant of Tryon rather than the old Hornby, which is curious. It means that essentially the modern Hornby is trading off the name of an entirely different company. It's a kind of stolen valor thing, if such a phrase is applicable to model railways. But the thing is, the Hornby name alone has endured. The name has outlasted all its competitors. It's outlasted Bing, Carrette, Bassett Loke, Tryon, Playcraft. Even today, Hornby has taken over a number of other former competitors and their models. So I think that's it. I think it's quite simply the fact that while you cannot buy the same engines that were available in the 1920s, your father, your grandfather, your great-grandfather would have been familiar with the Hornby mark. And I guess that's it. The question is, what's in a name? And the answer is all of model railways, I guess.